think we are ready, so we'll go ahead and start. Well, good afternoon, everyone. This is the CJI, or the Criminal Justice Improvement Committee breakout session, if you will. As you can see on the board, these are the members of the CJI team that work here at the Crime Commission and work with our with a lot of law enforcement, public safety type programs. Our mission statement is relatively simplistic, but the bottom line is this. This is a pretty broad committee. It addresses issues all across the board, and so it's designed with the undertone of working with public safety and trying to make communities better. These are the funding priorities for this year for 2025. As Caroline stated earlier in the morning session, we are still trying to get some answers from Washington, D.C. on what to do going forward with just the regular equipment grants or the traditional block grants. So that is yet to be decided fully. So we would hope to do something later next year in that realm. But for now, what we're putting out there are these 4 priorities for agencies, for applicants to apply for.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Keith Bugner. I'm one of the grant planners, hybrid kind of guys here on the team, and I'm going to discuss the statewide regional infrastructure program and the outreach training initiatives. So first of all, this is a infrastructure priority that's segmented. It's worth $200,000 a year, and it's based on between the state and regional initiatives. So the important thing about the state initiatives is that they are for state agencies only. So basically, if your organization does not start with the word North Carolina or have it somewhere in there, i.e. Department of Public Safety, Administrative Office of the Courts, something along that line, you are probably not eligible for this. These applications will not necessarily be submitted for some committee review until a 3-way discussion has been held between the committee, your committee representative, the GCC staff, and the chair of the committee itself. Now, regionally speaking, where everybody else might be able to be involved, we're talking, again, infrastructure, which can mean almost anything in terms of support structure. But the limitations are you have to be an organization like a council of governor, or that does 5 or more counties in the state, or has a minimum combined population of 400,000 people in that region. So in the case if you're Lenore or Mecklenburg or something of that nature, you might get away with fewer than 5 counties, but you've got a higher population served. Before you plant one of those things, applications, it might be worth giving us a chat. We can kind of tell you where you kind of fit in the program. Next, we're continuing community outreach and training initiative. We're committing in a continuation of what we had done last year on that, and that's $200,000 a year up to 2 years again. And it's primarily for law enforcement training programs such as the accreditation, which we'll talk about in a minute, and some outreach and training. This has got to do with your communities, other organizations, partnerships between your law enforcement agencies and yourselves. We'll cover trainers, registration costs, supplies, travel, things of that nature. Again, it's worth talking to us. Are you on that one?
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
Yeah.
No, that's you.
I was going. And I mentioned we had again statewide accreditation. We've had quite a bit of success with this. It's known as CALEA or North Carolina CALEA. So we will continue to assist agencies with getting their officers accredited to a known standard of performance and care. If you can afford this, and we don't have quite as much in the bucket in that one, but so you can use some or all of it for 1 or 2 of the standards. Just we have to understand where you are going with that. And again, like the bottom, we talk about accreditation fees. support for the officer overtime while they're being trained. But all that has to be documented as if they were in a personnel position. And then finally, we're talking, George?
Good afternoon. My name is Matt Stewart, and I am a grant administrator and planner here at GCC. With regard to the Community Mental Health Initiative, these applications are valid up to 24 months. There are 3 different kinds of categories. There are small, middle, and large. If you apply for a small category, you can be eligible for up to $75,000 a year, but your population would need to be 50,000 or less. If you were to apply for what is considered a middle category grant, you could receive up to $120,000 a year, but your population would need to be between 50,000 and 200,000. Finally, if you were to submit an application for the large category, your population would need to be over 200,000, and you would be eligible for up to $225,000 in a given year. With regard to these applications, one thing I want to say and make everyone aware of is the Criminal Justice Improvement Committee does not approve every application that comes in for these categories. Typically, if you have one of the categories, they're looking to fund maybe 1 or 2 projects, but maybe not any more than that. It's a finite, small number of applications. One thing the committee likes to see is a unified approach in the community. So if you can have the applying agency, but other organizations in back of them and showing a cohesion and a togetherness, it helps the application. I would also like to say that if you are going to use a model that might be promoted by the National Alliance on Mental Health, that also can help your application. There's some different models out there. One model that a lot of people are familiar with and tend to utilize is the Memphis model. The last thing I'm going to talk about this afternoon is here, this is a resource page for crimesolutions.com. What crimesolutions.com is, it is a web-based clearinghouse of programs and practices, and it is also a process for identifying and rating those programs and practices. And you can see here, there's a selection menu on the left side of the screen. There's about 8 or 9 different options. If you have some time, I would recommend checking out that page, and possibly there, as I mentioned, there are practices and rating processes.
So as you can see, those are the 4 priorities that the committee has voted on to put out for funding consideration for this year, or for this grant cycle. A couple of just minor notes, and some of this is already things we had mentioned earlier in our earlier presentations in the morning sessions. You know, make sure your budget items are explained in your project narratives. If you're doing something along training or working with participants, you know, give a designated number or estimated number of participants and how that will impact, you know, statewide and regional and the geographic areas you're trying to affect. If you're a nonprofit, you must have your, you know, nonprofit status, of course, and you'll be required to, you know, provide copies of some information into your profile in the EBS website. Sustainability, I mean, this is something everyone needs to think about longer term. The intent of GCC money has always been meant to be more of a pilot type of funding stream, a seed project, if you will, to get agencies and communities up and running, and then with the hope that they have some success, that, you know, they find local support or other means of support. Because unfortunately, you cannot continue to just rely on these funds to go on long term, especially now. I mean, just the world economy being what it is, Congress being what it is, everything going on in DC, I mean, these funds are getting reduced on different levels for various funding streams. So it's not something you can rely on anymore as a constant source of funding for your projects. When you do talk about sustainability, do think of, specific activities that would help you long-term, other resources you could look at, and, kind of what your financial plan may be once these funds have expired or finished or been completed on your side. And again, it's common sense why we ask you to do this, because, the dollars are getting less. There's nothing guaranteed anymore, at least on the federal side. And, everything is now competitive, essentially. There's no more gimmies, there's no more automatics that are out there for any of the committees that we have here at GCC for the most part. That's our presentation. We understand that it was, we did not want it to go too long. There is more information in the RFA, so when that is put out there, please take a look at it. Please read through it carefully, and then feel free to call back if you have any other questions. We want to thank everybody for their time. Any questions you have, please put them in the chat. They will, again, be put into a frequently asked questions document or something at the end of all this, and hopefully we'll be able to capture everyone's questions that they had out there. So, again, we just want to thank you, the team, for your attention this afternoon, and we appreciate it, and we hope everyone has a good day. Thank you.